Talking about the distribution of functions among the different levels of government in Spain, we clearly appreciate, and this has been already sanctioned by the Constitutional Court of saying, oh, this is in conformity with our Constitution, that the central government has obviously the main powers regarding stability criteria. The central government establishes the objective of budgetary stability, which probably has to be the case for obvious reasons. Also maintains the surveillance and authorization mechanisms, and also has the control of the information taken in order to make sure that the stability criteria are met and are properly involved in the development of the budgetary process. Those are the databases that have been developed in order to make sure that the financial stability criteria are met and they can be properly managed and surveilled by the ministry or by the government. The autonomous community regarding local authorities have budgetary stability surveillance only if the Statute of Autonomy recognizes financial surveillance competence of local authorities. If not, they simply pass that competence to the central government. And local entities are fully responsible for approval and execution of budgets, so at the end it is for the local government to decide how to manage the budgetary equilibrium requirements, and also to submission of information, but also to present plans for re-equilibrium in order, or when the case of the equilibrium criteria cannot be met or have not been met. By talking about plurality, the stability law recognizes that the requirement to accommodate the budget, the stability, needs to be ascertained and talking on an economic cycle and not on an annual basis. And that means that exceptionally, a deficit is allowed under certain economic parameters to face low phases of the economic cycle when growth of the national GDP is below the forecasted variation of rate of GDP. And this is the threshold which allow, under the economic cycle, the presentation of certain deficit level, or when they are forced to present a surplus or equilibrium. From that, it derives that the central government has made public the levels of deficit that may be maintained for the different levels of government in Spain in order to accommodate to the path presented by the European Commission in order to meet the standards under EU law requirements or under EU requirements. And we will see that obviously the local entities suffer the worst part, considering obviously that probably in a percentage they also have a lower amount of public expenditure possibilities. But we will see that in 2004, in any case, the deficit available for local entities will be 0%, which means they need to reach somehow, and somehow means somehow, the stability criteria, no deficit allowed. What type of exceptions can they meet? Well, under general framework, we said, generally speaking, there is no possibility to present deficit. But when we see the recent government decision on the path during the 3 following years, we say that the presentation and execution of budgetary plans need to meet the budgetary stability levels. But however, if budgets are liquidated according to the framework, then the local entities are exempt to present a financial and economic plan for re-equilibrium. So in any case, they have to present, they have to execute the plan on stability, but if the execution leads to a deficit, that deficit is allowed provided that it is maintained or kept under the numbers allowed for the or by the Commission. Only if the liquidation, presentation, or execution fails to that pattern, then there is a need for those entities, the lower local entities, to present a plan of financial and economic re-equilibrium that in that case has to be approved by the plenary of the municipality. Local entities under Article 111, which are capital of provinces and municipalities of more than 75,000 inhabitants, may nevertheless present budgets with deficit, but in any case, this deficit must be in line with the one established or with the past proof that we already have seen in the chart. And from that chart, there is a coordination body at the Ministry of Finance, which is the Senato, the Comisión Nacional para la Administración Local, the local administration coordination body, that assigns an amount of deficit to each one of the cities or the municipalities according to their specific needs. Obviously, that has to be presented with a pluriannual memory that tries to guarantee, whatever the meaning of guarantee, the financial stability along this cycle. And if not, there is a plan to be approved by the Ministry of Finance. There are also exceptions for the deficit derived from increase of investment programs for productive actions. And those has to be in line with the maximum approved by the Senato and also respecting the 0.05% total GDP deficit that corresponds to local governments. Moreover, since June this year, we have introduced the so-called expense rule. And that expense rule only affects, up to that point, to local entities under Article 111, so no to local entities with no more than 75,000 inhabitants, and the state. And it is foreseen that also autonomous communities will be subject to that rule, but with that framework, they need to negotiate on a bilateral basis. With the new Article 135, it will be the organic law developing the Constitution that will be able to say this, and this has to be done by the autonomous community. So more power, obviously, for the central state. The expense rule says what amount of computable expenses. Obviously, the debt expenses and the unemployment expenses are out of that rule, so they can be paid apart or exceeding such an expense rule. And there is a way to compute how much expenses can be assumed by public entities. But because that is made for a forecast of the evolution of 3 years, it may be subject to certain kind of condition by the study to be made. It is important to know that that expense rule will have clearly binding rules on local authorities, especially when they need to present a re-equilibrium plan, because they will have to be subject to that top of expenses to be made, which means less money for other services that they are forced to preserve or to serve to the society. And they are, the expense rule is modulated by the rules in the provision of collection of resources. So less resources are collected, effectively collected, means that the expense rules also apply in that situation. Less expenses to be allowed to every local entity. And in case that the local entity collects further or surplus resources, that excess needs mandatorily to be applied to the reduction of public debt level. But the fact is that there is no winning prize for those local entities who do that best. I mean, it simply says if you do best, this is your price. You will have less debt.